Okay, let's just try the form sitting down just to stretch, just to get everything working. So arms up. So just trying to get all the muscles around here activated, especially the ones in the belly that pull my hands in. So here the belly's really pulling in to get the hands to come in and down. And here my back's extending, and then here this side of the belly pulls in. And just twist as far as you can, just really to get stretched, to get those muscles activated. And to get the whole waist complex tightened up, toned up. And then one more. So back, belly. twisting, but the belly really pulling in, and then twisting back, and then belly to settle into the posture. Back, belly, back. A little bit of belly to finish the posture. Back, belly, back, belly to bring the hand in, and then just back, belly, back. So just figure of 8 around the hips and the feet. So we just want, it's like the outside hand. It's like there's an outside track and an inside track. So the outside track here is just trying to make as big a figure of 8 as possible. And it's really the inside hand. So my right hand coming around the left foot that's tracing the figure of 8 around the foot proper. So 1. So we want a real feeling for like our aura, you know, the sort of the expansive energy that's outside of your body. And so I let my mind go out, and so as the hand goes out, like part of my mind goes with it. And that's the part of the mind that just attends to the outside. So it's nothing to do with the eyes. So the eyes tend to objectify the world and capture it and diminish it. So we want a different aspect of the mind, so it's still part of the regarding mind, but it's not fixing in a gaze, it's glancing. There's like a glancing blow, glancing. So you can you see the hand, but right out of the corner of your eye. So we want to be able to use the eyes to release as well as capture. So when I look at something fixedly and my mind starts trying to recognize and name and capture and possess, then I imprison the thing, I bind it up with my mind. So here I'm seeing it here, but at the same time I'm releasing it. So this is, you know, when we do the first warm-up exercise, and You know, you see beginners doing it and they're just keeping their eyes at the front like this as they're doing this. Yeah. And so we tell them, you know, let the head and the eyes go with the turn. So it's that really. So the eyes are always releasing the world rather than capturing it. Because like they say in the martial arts, you know, if your eyes capture the opponent, then they have also captured you in a way. They can use that tight connection to unbalance you. So fleeting glances, passing by, you become a passerby. So really feeling the back of the foot. You know, how do you get around the back of the foot? So I really need to press back with my Min Meng and draw in my Dantian so that my tail can feel that it's cutting under the foot. So I go backwards to come forwards, but under the ground, and I sink to come up in front of me. I sink behind myself in order to come up in front of me. So sinking down your own body, especially your back, so that the energy can come up the other person. So here I'm scooping under the ground like a big spoon. And just really feeling the turn. So all the time, we're just trying to make the world blur. So nothing, I'm not still for a moment, so nothing becomes distinct. Everything is just a blurred merging. Everything is bleeding into each other. Okay, now let's bring it to riding horse. So now our central equilibrium. So the equilibrium between the down and the up, but particularly between the back and the forwards. So my body is as though falling backwards. Like in real slow motion, I'm falling backwards onto my back, onto a mattress or something. And my mind is reaching forwards with my hands in order to balance that so that there's no net movement, but there's lots of internal movement. So I've just been practicing with or teaching someone and she's actually really good. And, you know, she did Tai Chi 40 years ago, so she's sort of got, been doing it before I started. And she just wanted to pick it up again. So we were just standing in front of each other like this. And it really felt that she was getting further and further away from me at the same time that I could feel her arms reaching around me. Yeah. So this is the feeling. You're having an effect. Yeah. Your presence is having an effect. It's not just a fact. You're not just there presenting yourself. You're actually working. So if I imagine someone in front of me, I'm drawing them into my heart and let that settle down into my belly at the same time that my arms are just reaching, as though I'm trying to reach my hands behind their back. And just trusting that, it will actually have a real effect, especially if you work with someone who's sensitive. But you have to keep it going in your mind. You can't just reach a steady state. It's an ongoing process. And because of that, it's difficult. Yeah, so as creatures, particularly as mammals, really, mammals have live young, so they need to look after the babies for quite a while. So they have this capacity for love and care. Yeah. And so I want my very being to be caring. I'm caring and I'm tending. Rather than just being in a sort of selfish, self-centered way. So I'm feeling, so this is important, just that feeling of the spine splitting through the sacrum into two, so that you can have this constant sinking down the body. Okay, now let's just come on to the toes. So if the previous was the cave, the cave, Me'ara in Hebrew, then this is the creature that lives inside the cave. So this is spirit, the spirit of you in you. So I have to really keep the sacrum hanging like the bob on the end of the pendulum. So keep it relaxed. And just waiting for it to shake. So just patience, really. Patience is the name of the game. Quietly patient. So that's, Nietzsche calls that thinking. It's beautiful. And is not that thinking, he says, when he's talking about patience. So we want it to be really sort of, it's threatening to do this. So we're having to and then heels down. Oh, now this should feel like a real relief. So you've sent down your heels, you've sent down your roots into the ground. You're now secure and you're safe. So you can go back to your depression. And then just coming forwards again. And you come into something, you come into an activity. So a spirit possesses you. But it's dangerous, it's tottering, it's about to collapse, it's difficult, it's challenging. Yeah, so just feel it making you fierce. An enfiercement. Yeah. So if I want to intensify that, I just sink down a little bit more. Like something inside you is beginning to boil. It's like anger, but it's a joyful thing. So it's sort of, you're more likely to break into a laugh than an angry growl. And then we just rock back onto the heels, and that all subsides, and I just become the caring, tending home. I become the cave, the container. And now let's just breathe it. So this is just really for the Dan Qian. So just drawing it in. It's a bit like the cave. Imagine not the cave, the fire. Imagine that the fire in the cave that the primitive man, family gather around for warmth and protection. So that's like your Dan Qian. So here we're just sort of stoking the flames, really, just tending it, tending the fire. Yes, just imagine those sort of primitive people, the care with which they would have had to live their lives. Otherwise, they'd be dead. And also the immense knowledge that each person would contain simply for survival. So just feel the feet doing the same as the hands. So toes are splaying, and then the toes grasp. Okay, now let's try just one at a time, but now just with the simple figure of 8. So the hand that goes out is turning to face out, and then as you yield, you turn the hand to face up. So this is what the feet are doing, really. So just feel the little finger, it wants to extend the most, but also the little toe. And then they both curl up to start the yielding. So the yielding really starts with the extension of the little finger and the little toe, and then that then starts curling up to actually bring the person in. Yeah, so when you yield, there's a sense of withdrawing, but also a sense of pulling in. You're pulling something into you. So in a sense, you're becoming attractive. There's a force bringing the world into you. So it's a gravity. Gravity is the force of attraction. So here I'm working on my own gravity, my own gravitational center, but also my own attractiveness. I'm drawing the world in. And I want to feel how when I draw in with the one hand, the other hand automatically just goes out. And I want that going out not to be what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the hand that's coming in. I'm attending to the drawing in so that what goes out can be of spirit rather than of my greedy mind. Because if I look at it, I'll ruin it. And so I'm locking my mind with the hand that's yielding, that's drawing in, and just allowing this little bit of free spirit to just venture out with the hand that's extending, and the little finger and the little toe that are extending. Yeah, so it's the same quality of mind that's going out with the hand as was when we were doing the figure of 8. It's like it's going out right on the edge of my peripheral vision. And in a sense, that's where there's most energy. You know, when I can see something really clearly, then I'm sort of gathering information, but there's very little energy. Energy is always on the outskirts. So really turning, passing the world by. I'm turning one way and the world is passing me the other way. And then just letting it become knocking the gate of life, knocking the man min meng. Yeah. So we used to knock the danchen as well. So front and back. And again, really feeling it tightly turning. Like you're becoming swathed, cocooned in these really sort of diaphanous silks. Yeah, so I'm looking into my danchen, yet my peripheral vision is just sweeping and scanning the world. And then just into the second one. Again, just really turning. We want everything to start from the turn. This was like Chen Manqing's big insight, because normally in Young Start, they move the body first and then they turn. If they need any more space, then they will turn. Chen Manqing's thing was you turn first and then you move the body back normally. So we want to feel that tug. I really have to pull here to actually start that turning. Okay, and now just back to our horse. Yeah. So just feel I extend my roots and then I can look up. Yeah. We only look down when we don't have a root. So, you know, you look down in order to start your root going down, but then once the root is down, everything is up because you're underneath everything. So you're looking up things and up into the world, up to the sky. Okay, now let's just do a little bit of the walking again. So first of all, let's just get the structure. So it's basically from the bagua. So the bagua is the 8 trigrams, the octagon with a trigram at each side and each corner. And so we just walk it. And so if I'm going to walk a circle like this, then my left foot is always going to face a side. And then my right foot is always going to face a corner. So this is now facing that corner. And now this foot turns to face this side. And then this foot comes round to face. So there's like 45 degrees between the 2 feet. Yeah, so this is the structure. And you can just make it either a really tight circle by having the toes almost touching here. And so it's almost like just a really small revolution. Or you can do like really big steps, yeah, and make a much bigger circle. So what's difficult about it is that, you know, what is it that makes the turn? What is it that forces you to be turning to your left all the time? And it's because there's something in the middle of the circle. Yeah. So you're sort of keeping your attention on the middle of the circle, but again, with the peripheral vision. And that middle of the circle is just tugging you around all the time, forcing this to go down on the turn, forcing this to go down on the turn. Yeah, so either foot can be the corner and either foot can be the side. So this is the basic structure, and you know, you don't have to be that strict, so it can sort of be a bit coming in and out all the time. And then we just get the figure of 8 going. So I'm looping the foot. I'm looping the foot. So going into the heel first and then around the foot, going into the heel first and around the foot. Yeah, so it's useful for really stretching across the back here. So it's basically a moving meditation. So you know, they do it for hours. And every now and then they'll change direction. Okay, now let's just bring it back to riding horse for a sec, and then we'll try the same thing, but with the figure of 8 around the foot. Okay. And now, so, you know, so what we realize is that when you put the heel down first, so when we're going we have a simple figure of 8 connecting the 2 feet like this, then the heel tends to go down first, and then I put the rest of the foot down to come around it with the figure of 8. So what we realize from practice is that when you put the heel down first, there's always a little bit of a sort of bang. It's a little bit clumsy. So what we want to do is basically put the toes down first and then put the heel down on a figure of 8. Yeah. So I put my toe, so I'm just doing this figure of 8 within my foot. So my foot is contained within a figure of 8, but my foot also contains a figure of 8. And so like this, yeah. And then toes down first, and then I can put the heel down on the figure of 8, and then it's really gentle and sensual and subtle. So, ooh. Yeah, so this is like the detail within the exercise. So you can be doing both at the same time. So in one sense, you're just doing the previous one, but within that, this is happening. And you can see that on the previous one, I was going around the heel this way, yeah? And then here on this one, I'm going around the heel this way. And so there's a little bit of a conflict, which is, it's a bit like a sort of frisson, like a sort of rub. And it's lovely. Yeah, so ooh. So these walkings, especially this one, just changed everything for me. Because there's a sense in which you can keep this going as you're walking the streets. I mean, it's subtle, but and it's like invisible. But it's just a way of just putting the foot down in such a caring, careful way. So we care for the earth in the same way that the sky cares for us. So as you walk, the air is caressing you all the time. So this is the feeling we want with the earth. And it's difficult to get it on man-made surfaces. So you need grass or sand or rock. It's quite interesting. Walking to that person's house, I just walked through the big park in Tel Aviv. And so there's a paved path, paved with sort of these bricks, these red bricks. And beside that, there's just grass. And so I always sort of walk on the grass. And it's interesting because as soon as I hit the grass and start walking on it, I tend to slow down. Yeah. Because when you're with the natural, it tends to encourage lingering. So things tend to slow down. You really savor the quality of that energy. You don't want to just rush past. This is one of Casaneda's insights, that when we feel like we've got a lot of energy and we're sort of rushing, sauntering along quickly, it's normally when that environment is not actually very good for us. Something in us just wants to get through as quickly as possible. And it's when we slow down and feel tired, that's when that environment is just very good for you. It's calling you. It's calling you to linger, to stay a while. Ooh. So this is my practice now. 40 minutes of sitting, followed by 20 minutes of this. Okay, so I need to finish because I've got to go and drive to Zichron to pick up Thai. So let's just bring it back home. Keep the home fires burning. So this is your hearth, hearth and home, earth, hearth, heart. So they're almost the same words in spelling. Yeah, so just feel, let's just feel the centers just for a moment. Yeah. So that Platonic psychology, Plato's psychology. So in those days, you know, it was basically before people had learned how to worry. Before they felt that there was a world that they needed to improve and maintain. Yeah. And so they just accepted what was there. And so it's a time when the mind and the spirit were almost the same thing, where they were pretty much the same. So a psychology was of the spirit, really, rather than of what we think of the mind. Yeah. And so in his psychology, there were basically three centers for the spirit: eros, so the erotic; thymos, so the contention, if you like; and logos, which was used not to think, but to balance. So logos was required to keep these two, to keep the feminine erotic, that sort of yielding, tending, beautiful, smooth, long energy, and the thymos, the male, contending, aggressive spirit, to keep these two in balance. Yeah. So what we want is for basically the belly, the Dan Chen, to effectively be with the erotic, so with the heart that's drawing in. So that the deep heart is basically the really deepest part of the hollow of your chest. And the thymotic part, the thymus, is really where the part of the sternum that rears out the most. You know, so that sort of male pride, you know, when boys are facing each other in the playground and they'll thrust their chest up and their chin out, yeah, in defiance, like a challenge. So the belly and the heart, the deep heart, are basically the same thing. So they're really sort of, there's like an elastic thread between them that's quite tight. And it's always, ooh, it's always doing this. There's always a breathing going on. And the thymos is like, and then this is just keeping those two balanced, but there always has to be a sway. It's a beautiful word, yeah. So there's always a sort of a back and forth. They're never just sort of locked into a steady state. So sometimes, obviously, you know, you're with the erotic, and other times you're with the fight, yeah. But they swing, they sway. Yeah? Okay, now let's just bring it up. So this is just almost like just a withdrawal, closing down the work. Yeah, so the work brings you into what Castaneda called a separate reality. brings you into the internal, into the esoteric. And it's quite distinct. That world is quite distinct from the normal world that you inhabit. And so we need to make a formal start to a session, and we need to make a formal closing, just to keep things tidy, really. So here I'm just drawing in all of that, all of those tentacles that were reaching out and caring and. Yeah, so when the mind quietens, there's quietness, but then there's like real activity. And so it's like when you quieten down, what I was yesterday, and he just said to me, when will I start feeling energy like you do? And it's like only when you quiet down, because what we're doing, a lot of the noise that we have is intended just to keep that world out. World of energy. It will always disturb, yeah? Heidegger had a beautiful phrase for it. He called it the thunderstorm of being. So he says what we're looking for all the time, especially philosophers, people like him, thinkers, they were looking for insight. And he said insight is like a flash of lightning. Yeah. So when that flash of lightning appears, suddenly you see everything, but only for a moment, yeah, and then it's gone. That's like an insight. And so he used the thunderstorm as like an image, a metaphor for being in the world, yeah. And so when the mind is quiet, you're in a thunderstorm all the time, because there's just so much activity, yeah? And there's these flashes of lightning. It's yeah, and so you just you're just walking along, and it's like this just fluid world that's sort of all full of turbulence and creatures and things that we normally just block out because we're so concerned with ourselves, with our own self, our own problems, yeah. So we never really listen, we never regard the world. So that's how we come back to nature. We don't go tramping in the hills. We don't pollute, yeah. We just try and quieten the mind, and then nature will just open up. You become natural. That's how you go back to nature, by becoming natural. So you become of your essence, yeah. You enter the thunderstorm of being. He's such a good writer, Heidegger, yeah. Says you're in the thunderstorm and you take off your hat and let the rains pelt your head, your bare head. You know, it's just all an image, yeah. Like a real poet. So it's not comfortable, you know. It's intense, it's real, it's dangerous, it's demanding. This is what we want to feel. We want to allow the world to demand of us, yeah, to make demands. So this is what nature does. Yeah, nature mithers you. You know, when you're walking, it's calling. It's sort of, this is what we want. So we can't just glide through a comfortable existence, making choices, choosing my entertainment. Yeah, If you do that, you'll just remain pathetically puerile for a whole life. And you'll never develop soul. Okay, so let's finish.